The thought of being able to fly has probably passed through the minds of every person on the planet. Soaring through the air, experiencing the world from above, sounds like something from a dream. With that in mind, it's not really surprising that we've come up with our own ways to experience flight. Theme parks especially have capitalized on this universal fascination. This is a flying coaster. It's like a normal roller coaster, but instead of being above the track, you're suspended, facing the floor below it. Flying roller coasters offer an experience traditional rides simply can't. With nothing between you and the ground below, you feel as if you're soaring independently through the air and instinctively want to assume that Superman pose. Like all rides, flying coasters come in a range of shapes and sizes. Some drag you 52 meters, 170 feet up into the air, whilst others launch you around a heavily twisted layout. But where did the idea first come from? What makes these types of rides special? And most importantly, how do they work? In the run-up to the new millennia, a flurry of new types of roller coasters appeared. Traditionally, most roller coasters were the same. You'd board a train which lies above the track and you'd sit down in your seat. Simple. However, this wouldn't be the only option for long. In the early 1980s, manufacturers of roller coasters began to experiment with stand-up roller coasters, which saw guests stand as they navigated the track. Then, in the 1990s, new rides were designed which saw guests sit below the track instead of above it, known as inverted coasters. By the late 90s, the dive coaster had been invented, as had the classic hypercoaster and the floorless coaster too. All of these different seating positions got manufacturers of rides thinking, what other ways could guests experience a roller coaster? It's not surprising that the idea of a flying coaster popped up next, not just by one company, but by several. The race to build the world's first flying coaster wasn't won by one of the major players in the world of amusement designers, nor a big theme park either. It was a small company, building a one-of-a-kind ride for a random Studios Tour amusement park in the UK. Weird. In 1988, Granada Studios Tour, a theme park Studios Tour hybrid attraction, popped up in Manchester, giving visitors the chance to see various sets from British TV at the time. The tour was more popular than expected, leading to a range of investments, including the debut of an all-new ride. In 1997, Skytrak International debuted its first and only roller coaster, the Skytrak. The Skytrak became the world's first flying roller coaster, one which placed guests on their front, facing the ground as they soared around the twisty track. The attraction was a solo coaster. This meant that the difficult and slow boarding process saw a single rider climb into a capsule-like ride vehicle, which would then raise and lock into position prior to dispatch. Despite being the first of its kind, the Skytrak was short-lived. It suffered heavily from reliability issues, the same issues which caused it to open several months late. Sadly, the ride closed before the end of 1998, operating for less than a year. The entire tour shut its doors the following year, making the Skytrak a rare experience. All was not lost, however. The big roller coaster companies were watching. They wanted to continue their expansion, promising new types of rides for theme parks across the world to buy. One of these was Vekoma, a Dutch amusement rides manufacturer known at the time for producing a whole host of roller coasters. Vekoma had recently introduced some new products to their portfolio, including the suspended looping coaster, the SLC, as well as a suspended version of their well-known compact roller coaster model, the Boomerang. In 1998, California's Great America built one of these new Boomerang rides, named Invertigo. Finding success with Vekoma, the park was intrigued by a new prototype ride the Dutch manufacturer was offering, nicknamed the Flying Dutchman. The first Vekoma Flying Dutchman, Stealth at California's Great America, debuted to the public at the beginning of the year 2000. Unlike Skytrak, the ride was a proper roller coaster. It featured large 24-rider trains and multiple inversions. Because of this, the park marketed their ride as the world's first true flying coaster. That's a bit mean, really. Is this not a roller coaster? Nevertheless, Stealth, now known as Nighthawk, is considered the world's first large-scale flying coaster. But how does it work? Whilst flying around the layout, guests hang below the ride's track, but they actually board the train while it's above the track. At first, you climb into the 4-wide car, which is angled at 60 degrees. Each seat in the train has 3 restraint pieces, 2 individual harness segments, and a lap bar. Attached to the lap bar are ankle restraints, which hold your legs in a prone position throughout the ride. Once all of the restraints have been verified as closed, the magic happens. The entire train begins to recline backwards. Each row of riders tilts backwards until they're flat on their backs. Small wheels resting on metal blocks control this movement. As the blocks move down, the cars recline backwards. On the newest version of the Flying Dutchman, this movement is achieved through hydraulic pistons rather than these metal blocks. Nevertheless, the result is the same. The trains are in the flying position, albeit upside down. At this point, the ride begins. You exit the station and climb up the lift hill. At the top, the second magic thing happens. As the trains drop off the lift, they rotate 180 degrees, placing you on your front, and the flying begins. The Vekoma Flying Dutchman was the world's first large-scale flying coaster, but like Skytrak, it had issues. Firstly, stealth's capacity, the number of people able to ride every hour, wasn't very good. The entire boarding process was long. The 3 restraint types, combined with the additional time required to raise and lower the train, meant it took extra time to load each vehicle. Secondly, the reliability of stealth was questionable. The electrical box, which monitored the train's restraints and the raising and lowering system, was mounted on each ride vehicle rather than in a separate electrical room. The consistent G-forces caused these components unnecessary stress, which ultimately affected the ride's reliability. Their solution at the time? Move the entire roller coaster. Brilliant! Paramount Parks, the parent company of California's Great America, decided to relocate Stealth to one of its quieter theme parks, Carowinds. During the relocation, time and money were also spent on improving the ride system, making it more consistent and ultimately reliable. Stealth opened at Carowinds in 2004 as Borg a Simulator, before being renamed Nighthawk, as it remains now, in 2007. Despite the problems, the novel premise alone was enough to see 2 more of these rides be built. At the time, Paramount Parks had originally planned to construct new Vekoma Flying Dutchmans at their other parks. After the problems with Stealth, they reconsidered. In the end, Six Flags purchased 2 new flying coasters instead. In 2001, X-Flight opened at Six Flags Worlds of Adventure, and Batwing debuted at Six Flags America. Modifications were made to these 2 rides to improve their capacity compared to Stealth. Both opened with 2 loading stations, which are placed side by side in parallel, allowing 2 trains to load at the same time. The additional station improved each ride's capacity despite the extra time required to load and unload guests. Sadly, this didn't make this version of the flying coaster any more appealing to theme parks. Only 3 Vekoma Flying Dutchmans were ever built, and just 2 remain in operation today. Fortunately for theme parks around the world, Vekoma weren't the only roller coaster company looking to sell flying roller coasters. Throughout the 1990s, a Swiss roller coaster firm known as Bolliger & Mabillard, B&M for short, had been introducing and perfecting a whole host of new ride types. In 1992, they introduced the inverted coaster. 1998, the dive coaster. 1999, the floorless coaster. Impressive. What was next? The flying coaster. In 2002, 2 years after Vekoma, B&M built their first flying coaster, Air at Alton Towers. This wasn't the plan, however. Together, Alton Towers and B&M had been planning the flying coaster for a while. They wanted it to open in 1998. Sadly, technological limitations delayed the project. Alton Towers Oblivion opened in 1998, while Air and B&M's first flying coaster was pushed back to 2002. Nevertheless, Air opened to great fanfare. The ride played heavily on the flying sensation, featuring a low-to-the-ground, graceful layout, flying-themed TV marketing, and a flying-themed name, Air, an acronym of Aerial Inversion Ride, apparently. At face value, B&M's flying coaster doesn't look very different from Vekoma's. They both feature 4-seat wide trains and navigate the majority of the layout suspended underneath the track. In reality, B&M's flying coaster works quite differently. Firstly, within the station, the ride resembles B&M's inverted coaster. Each train is suspended at a 90-degree angle below the track, allowing you to board in a familiar way. You pull down a thick vest-like harness, which closes a pair of ankle restraints at the same time. Once the restraints are locked and have been verified, the cars tilt upwards towards the track. This is achieved by a metal arm which stretches along the station on both sides of the train. At the top of each car is a small wheel, which rests within the arm. To begin the ride, the arm is forced down by hydraulic pistons. This causes the top of each car to pivot forwards, raising you into the flying position. At this point, you're free to enjoy the ride. You climb the lift hill, fly down the first drop, and swoop around the track. Unsurprisingly, B&M's flying coaster is technically complicated. Alone, the ride's restraint system features multiple redundancies and unique mechanisms to ensure your safety. For example, the lap bars are locked in using pins on each side. On both sides of the restraint are gaps that serve as locking points for the lap bar. When locking into position, these pins extend and are able to click into each locking point. The restraint can tighten but cannot be opened. Prior to dispatch, the pins extend completely and are fully locked. Additional pins attached to the end of the lap bar locking mechanism extend during the tilting process, stopping the restraint from fully opening during the ride. On top of this, like Vekoma's later flying coasters, Air, now named Galactica, features 2 stations to improve capacity. Furthermore, similar to B&M's inverted coasters, the floor retracts downwards prior to tilting to stop guests from contacting the ground. With the trains containing an abundance of components, B&M's flying coaster quickly grew to be one of the most expensive coaster types out there. On top of this, B&M stated that the elements their flying coaster could navigate are more restrictive compared to traditional roller coaster models. Ultimately, due to the unique rider position, the layout had to flow in a smooth and graceful manner. In some respects, this makes flying roller coasters tamer. However, the flying position does allow for unique elements that cannot be found on traditional rides. Whilst Air focused on the sensation of flight, Superman Ultimate Flight at Six Flags Over Georgia, which opened just a few weeks after, introduced the world to the pretzel loop. The pretzel loop is effectively an inverted classical loop, with the trains rising into the sky before diving beneath itself to provide a burst of intensity. At the base of the loop, guests are placed briefly on their backs before ascending back into the flying position. Fortunately, Air and Superman Ultimate Flight were a hit. This led other theme parks across the world to debut flying coasters of their own. Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain quickly became one of the park's flagship attractions in 2006, whilst Flying Dinosaur at Universal Studios Japan opened as the world's longest flying roller coaster at the time, featuring a unique zero-G roll element as well as the beloved pretzel loop inversion. Over the course of 2 decades, B&M has constructed 11 flying coasters, 4 of which reside at Six Flags parks across the US. The flying coaster was finally a success. Success at a price, however. Both Vekoma's and B&M's flying coasters were expensive, not the type of ride smaller theme parks could typically invest in. Cue the Italian ride manufacturer Zamperla. Zamperla realized that there would be a demand for smaller, more compact flying coasters at a cheaper price point. So, in 2002, they debuted their own flying coaster, a model they called the Volare, which fittingly means to fly in Italian. The first Volare debuted at Elitch Gardens and was creatively named Flying Coaster. Genius! Zamperla aimed to make their ride extremely compact and space efficient. Volares feature Wild Mouse-esque designs, with tight turns, several inversions, and a spiral lift hill. Due to the tight track layout, each ride operates single 4-person wide cars. These resemble the capsule-like ride vehicles first seen on the Skytrak several years earlier. The ride also boards like a Skytrak too. Guests climb into the ride vehicle in an upright position while it continuously rolls throughout the station. Once in, 2 metal grates, one for each pair of seats, close in guests from above. This creates a cage-like situation and acts as the primary restraint for the ride, as it features no dedicated lap bars or harnesses. While the train exits the station, A guide wheel engages with a ramp to push the car up into the flying position. The guests then climb the spiral lift hill and begin the heavily turn-based ride. Zamperla's Volare seems like a hit, on paper. It's a low-space, high-thrill addition that doesn't break the bank and gives visitors a unique flying experience. Unfortunately, they have a downside. The actual ride isn't very good. The general consensus points towards a ride experience which is rough, uncomfortable, and simply unenjoyable. Despite this, between 2002 and 2019, the Italian manufacturer sold 10 Volares before recently discontinuing the model forever. After seeing the initial success of the Zamperla Volare, Vekoma hoped to relaunch their Flying Dutchman model with a few changes. In 2009, they debuted Stingray at Ferris Wheel Park in China, a more compact version of their flying coaster. The ride featured a vertical lift hill, many tight inversions, and short two-row trains. Vekoma also improved the ride's restraint system, employing a vest and lap bar with shin guards to secure riders. Whilst innovative and a marked improvement compared to the compact offering of Zamperla, Vekoma's second-generation flying coaster failed to take off. Stingray remained the only one of its kind and closed its doors for good in 2018 after 9 years of operation. Fortunately for us, Vekoma's interest in flying roller coasters didn't end there. In 2020, the industry was in awe at the debut of the most advanced flying coaster yet. The creatively named F.L.Y opened at Phantasialand with the hopes of pushing flying coasters into a new territory. Phantasialand themselves wanted to create an experience, one which expanded beyond the ride itself. Vekoma and Phantasialand worked together to not only overcome the challenges of previous flying coasters, but also the unique obstacles present within the compact German park. Instead of previous rides, which saw guests tilt forwards or backwards into the prone position, F.L.Y would use a rotating system instead. The ride was designed to be boarded like any normal attraction. You enter the seats, positioned horizontally against the station wall. You pull down a familiar harness consisting of a lap bar, vest, and a set of leg flaps securing everyone's legs. The train then exits the station, moving horizontally along the track. Then, at some point during the ride, the seats of the train rotate, placing you into the prone position. Interestingly, F.L.Y places riders slightly less prone than other flying coasters at 75 degrees rather than closer to 90. This makes it more comfortable for guests to look forwards. To overcome Phantasialand's strict noise limits, the entire ride was encased by walls, which helped to contain sound and create the steampunk land of Ruckburg. A magnetic launch system, known as LSMs, is also used to propel the trains throughout the layout, a first for a flying coaster. This allows for a high top speed despite the land's low wall height. Vekoma also enabled the ride to be more compact than previous iterations of the design. F.L.Y opened as the world's longest flying coaster, despite taking up roughly half the space of the previous record holder, B&M's Flying Dinosaur at Universal Studios Japan. It's clear that the idea and even feasibility of the flying coaster has changed over the decades. From the unreliable Skytrak to the technologically advanced F.L.Y, not every concept has been a success. Despite this, the flying coaster continues to develop. B&M found success in the early 2000s, producing popular and more reliable large-scale flying coasters, while Vekoma's next iteration of the flying coaster has been meticulously engineered to be the best of its kind in the industry, offering more flexibility than ever before. The flying coaster continues to be one of the world's most advanced roller coaster types, an investment only a small proportion of theme parks could undertake. With the introduction of F.L.Y, will we see more flying coasters be built in the future? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you all next time.